Walt, it's nearly been a year. You put up with me and I put up with you, and boy, oh boy, we've got some great interactions, great listener feedback. So each and every week, thanks for tuning in. Don't worry, I know it's a slow week in the Autonomy Markets this week, but Walt and I got some interesting things to dive into. Walt, you want to kick things off today?
It's been a year, but obviously Road to Autonomy has been here much longer and has definitely emerged as the leading source out there. And you continue to do these interviews with senior management from the industry that I find fascinating each week in between Autonomy Markets. But and certainly the growth in this industry has accelerated in the past year, likely associated with AI. But I'm happy that we're able to keep people up every week on the news. It just seems like there's something new every week, even this week. And to your point, probably one of the slowest weeks we've had over the past year of doing this. Before we get to the autonomy stuff, did you see some of the videos that were circulating about the Chinese Olympics and robotics? Because it's kind of tied to our autonomous space.
I did. And if you can't win the race, you fall down, you get up, and you keep racing again.
I mean, they were not necessarily racing in their same lane. I think it was more comic relief for me when we're constantly told about how far ahead China is. I mean, I think we've seen Optimus, and we had some of the interns at Lightshed doing a big project on kind of the future of robotics and Optimus and other things. So I don't know. I found it more comedic relief than anything in terms of what we saw at the Olympic Games.
It could have been comedic relief, but really it was political. It sent a message to the world that China wants to own this industry and the world better pay close attention. That's the message it really sent to me.
Well, I don't know if I received that message. I mean, Figure AI, I think, had some videos later in the week that I saw on LinkedIn where they had one of their robots, walking over, difficult terrain, not necessarily a track. Obviously, agility we spent time with, and we hope to learn more about Tesla's progress with Optimus over time. But anyway, robotics has certainly a nice a nice market that's complementary to what we do here on Autonomy Markets. So something we'll be keeping tabs on.
It is, and I can't wait till I have a robot at home that can fold my laundry and clean my house. But that's for the future.
I mean, you've also talked about the robots that are going to clean the cars in a lot of these, robotaxi centers, assuming rideshare becomes the use, or even not if it's rideshare, just robotaxis to clean these cars out.
Robotics are going to play a huge role in the future of autonomy. From the maintenance, the service, they're going to play a big role. One of the companies that we follow very closely, Nuro, just successfully closed their Series E. They raised $203 million, $97 million of new money. The round was led by Uber. What percent of that round do you think Uber actually took?
Yeah, I have no idea. And we just know that Uber's spending money. We've talked about this in a past podcast where they were, actually you pointed out more than me. I was focused more on the share repurchase, and you were correcting me with all the times that they said that they were going to put additional money. And then here we are, them putting additional money, size unknown, but just point that, more dollars are going in. And frankly, they likely enabled dollars coming in from the institutional investor partners because of the deal that they had done with Nuro and Lucid, where they gave this 20,000 cars, which, by the way, both sides have emphasized that is a minimum. I think the expectation is, as things progress well for Nuro, as we hope and expect that they will, that there will be far more than 20,000 cars. Uber will own a big chunk of those at some point. If they can, offlay them to someone else, they will. But, definitely another positive step for Nuro, which is a company that, we've put investors in front of, and they've been very impressive in terms of how people view their technology and their positioning in this space.
And another thing about the Uber Nuro deal that we did learn, because Andrew Chapin, their COO, came on the Road to Autonomy podcast. You're right, it is a minimum, but that deal is going to go global as it expands. So that's going to be something to watch. What do you make of Nuro getting a $6 billion valuation at part of this round?
It's a public-sized company. It's the nature of the beast. We have seen the IPO market heating up more, and there's more companies, whether through SPACs or through actual IPOs. The market's expanding. I would guess that that's possibly a path, its next path for Nuro. But $6 billion, you're probably bigger than many public companies anyway, and that's why you saw the type of institutional investors that were in there. In the release, Grayson, though, they talked about how, one of the few companies that they've already been at scale with autonomous vehicles. I think what they're referring to is the delivery robots. I think our expectation has been that, that was a business that was going to get sold off as they focus more on licensing, right, for cars for rideshare type applications or maybe even private ownership. What are your thoughts, or what's the latest on the delivery robot business?
Delivery robot business, as we learned on the Road to Autonomy podcast, Nuro still has it. They're still working to develop it. It's not the main focus, but it's still there. Yes, you're right. At some point, do they spin it out to a Serve Robotics? Do they spin it out to a Coco? Do they spin it out to an AV ride? I don't know, because I think over time, as we clearly see, Nuro's going to develop into a fully licensing model. So it'll be interesting to see where those bots go. And I'll give you a curveball. Maybe even a BYD could potentially buy that business, since BYD was the manufacturer of the Nuro bots.
I mean, that market is consolidating. Serve made an acquisition. It's also interesting that, Uber has been involved in investing in this company. Obviously, these delivery robots fit right into what Uber's trying to accomplish on the Uber Eats side of things. We thought at one point that maybe there'd be a strategic reason for somehow Uber to take ownership of that delivery robot program. That doesn't seem to be happening, at least not yet. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to start to develop a partnership with a fleet management company, because I think a lot of these technology companies are relying on Uber to be the kind of go-between on fleet management. What are your thoughts on Nuro maybe going out on their own and saying, rather than Uber connecting them to a Waymo or Move or whoever it is, them developing those fleet management partnerships themselves? And maybe in the context of, you start with, with the delivery robots, and then it evolves into whatever cars ultimately, get the Nuro driver and get licensed out.
It could be the way that the contracts are structured that was documented in the SEC filings. The deal with Lucid Uber is exclusive for the Gravity. Those vehicles are exclusively contractually obligated to run on the Uber network. As it relates to the bots, that's a very real possibility, but I question the economics. Would a fleet manager want to manage a fleet of these bots? Is there enough revenue there, enough profitability to do it? Yes, from a real estate perspective, it's a lot smaller real estate footprint, but is there enough revenue and profitability there to make a fleet manager interested?
I guess I'm going to question what you just said, because it's irrelevant that the Lucid cars are going to be on the Uber network. There still has to be a third party, which Uber doesn't seem like it wants to be the third party that's doing the fleet management. My only point is, in general, forget about delivery robots. In general, should a company like Nuro or May or whoever it is be developing relationships with a Waymo or Move or the countless other smaller fleet managers that we know are out there, whether for these Lucid cars, in other markets, or for their delivery robots, rather than rely on Uber to be kind of the defining partner in who says which fleet partner they're going to go with?
100%. To me, it's diversifying a risk. You have to have those relationships, and you know this very well, and our audience knows very well. You can get better deal terms if you go and shop the deal to the market. So yes, 100%, diversify.
And as long as, Uber's not doing that, and if you develop those relationships, that could potentially be part of a vertically consolidated play, in the future, right? I'm not sure Uber can control, if someone else wants to come in. I don't know. Again, we haven't seen the term sheets on the fleet managers that they've taken equity stakes in. But again, Nuro, big company, just raised a ton of money. Maybe that's a path to start asking about in terms of these technology companies, whether it's Wave or Nuro or May or whoever, that are starting to evolve, to develop some additional semblance of independence, from whatever the platform is that their product is going to be used on.
If I was running one of these companies, I would develop my own internal ecosystem of partnerships, not relying on one partner. If that partner goes under or the contract ends, I would build a whole ecosystem of partners in order to scale this to hedge my risk.
Getting back to the delivery robots, though, on Road to Autonomy, and what I said before about the value of Road to Autonomy, you've interviewed the CEO of Serve, you've interviewed the CEO of Coco. We've now seen some slight consolidation. It's not something that Uber Eats or Uber talks about on their earnings call in something that can drop the cost and change the margin dynamics there. But when we talk to these companies, and you've done it on Road to Autonomy, and I've done it just in our basic research, it seems like they are also at some version of inflection point, and we're going to see these things popping up in more and more cities, and you're going to see more of these things. There'll be an advertising model wrapped into it. How is this Nuro opportunity, meaning their delivery robots, not attracting more attention, either from the existing players or from a third party that can play a role here?
Well, there's a key differentiator, and I don't mean to put my regulatory hat on, but there's a very key differentiator here. The way the Nuro vehicle's designed from a regulatory standpoint, James Owens does a really great job as the chief legal officer for Nuro handling all of their policy. It is designed to run on a road in mixed traffic. The Serve robotics and the Coco robotics are designed to run on sidewalks. So two completely different regulatory environments, different speeds, different use cases. The Nuro vehicle, in theory, this is the bot, not the car, can go longer distances. Obviously, it can go faster speeds.
Got it. So it's two different, but it's effectively the same thing. You're delivering goods and not people. I don't know. Like let's back away from Nuro for a second and just thoughts on, where you think that market is in, the hockey stick growth that we hope for, or, a lot of people like to say what inning it is of the game where robot delivery of food, specifically to the benefit of DoorDash and Uber Eats and others, is in the market today. Where are we?
I'm a baseball nerd, and we're heading into the fall for the Fall Classic. We're in the top of the first inning. And I believe in the fastest metric to look for that's going to drive the growth of this business is their ad businesses. If you talk to Zach at Coco, you talk to Ali over at Serve, the fastest growing part of their businesses are the ad revenue. Their ad revenue is starting that hockey stick growth. And the more bots they get out there, the faster that ad revenue is going to grow. And that's the thing I'm really, really watching. So that market is in the top of the first, but it's about to take off.
I mean, that's fine. That's outdoor advertising. But outdoor advertising, if you're getting good CPMs, you're going to just want more product out there. And the question is not about the advertising, Grayson, because I think you just dodged the question. The question is, when do we scale so that Uber, like Dara gets on an Uber call and says, percentage of our deliveries handled by robots is now, 15%, 10, whatever the percentage is, that people start to get excited about the margin opportunities by taking those costs away from their existing delivery mechanisms. In some cases, like it's impossible, right? You're gonna have to have the guy on a bike or whatever it is. But it seems like we're still early days in the opportunity there.
Dense urban environments, and this includes grocery, includes alcohol, includes pizza. Q1 27, you start to see significant growth. That's in dense urban environments. That is not rural environments. That is dense urban environments. Q1 27.
We saw in a related but not exactly the same market, Amazon start to talk up how they wanted to do overnight. I mean, if you go to the Amazon app, it's very confusing in terms of what's Whole Foods, what's fresh, what's Amazon Fresh, what's overnight, what market's available. Like, to me, it doesn't approximate at all what Instacart is doing today. But there's always this fear of like, Amazon, and as they go into a vertical, whether it's groceries or foods, delivery mechanisms that they use. Obviously, we're familiar with the Zoox project. Where is Amazon on the delivery robots? Who is using them, and what do you think the opportunity is for them?
I think Amazon has a bigger opportunity in Prime Air than it does in delivery robots. I'm not sure if you use my household as an example, the objects and items that we buy outside of grocery, which we buy from Amazon, tend to be larger, not necessarily the right fit for a bot. Whereas some of the things I had to order batteries the other day. Prime Air would be a great example for that. But I live in restricted airspace. But I still think if you move outside of restricted airspaces, Prime Air is a bigger opportunity for Amazon today and in the future than delivery robots.
I think Air has its own issues. But anyway, I think that, on Autonomy Markets, it's not just about vehicles. It's robots and food robots, and it's definitely a space to watch because those are certainly billions of dollars of opportunity there. Grayson, in my world, I continue to get questions about, what is going on between the Uber and Waymo relationship. Last week, especially after last week, where we gave a lot of great data and our thoughts on why Atlanta might be showing, a different type of ramp than, than Austin did, specifically because the ODM was twice the size and you had an initial launch of probably a similar number of cars that they had for Austin. So I guess, first off, I think you have some new information on that kind of verified what we talked about last week and why it's basically hard to get a Waymo in Atlanta.
I got to do one of my favorite things. I got to put on my Cousteau hat. Not Jacques Cousteau, but Cousteau. I went there, or I used the Sherlock Holmes. So I didn't turn on the local Atlanta TV. Would have been cool. See what the Braves are doing. I read Fox 5 Atlanta, the news website, and found out that there is a problem in Atlanta with Waymo. The local news is interviewing people in the local Atlanta market. They cannot get a Waymo. There was one individual reported in the Sun, the UK. The gentleman tried for an hour to get a Waymo. Order X, cancel, order X, cancel, order X, cancel. So Fox 5 Atlanta puts out, well, you can't make this up. They put out a guide on how to increase your chances of being paired with a Waymo in Atlanta. Choose green or comfort. This is not very good. The fact that your local news media is putting out a guide of how to get this, something's not working. You say it's supply constraint. I say it's not good.
Was it comfort or was it comfort electric? Or green is reflecting of the electric and comfort. Was it comfort electric or just comfort?
2 tiers. So you have green and comfort. So two different tiers.
Got it. So, I mean, our experience in Austin was, effortless. When we were in the ODM of Waymo, and those things were crawling all over the place. I get it. When we were in Austin, it was, months into the launch, and they had flooded the market with what we estimated was 200 Waymo cars in that ODM before it was then expanded. And I was able to get them on UberX, on comfort, business comfort, I think, on a couple of different categories. We got served up a Waymo. So in Atlanta, there's just not enough supply, right? So, if they're doing hundreds per week, I would guess that should be fixed within a couple of weeks. And then maybe Autonomy Markets needs to hit the road again, check it out, see how hard it is to get a Waymo in a couple of weeks, do our car counting, which ends up being pretty good in terms of getting close to the numbers. And also maybe check May Mobility, which is offering some version of service. I think we'd have to take a closer look. I haven't seen much content on that, so I think we'll have to break the seal on content on May Mobility in Atlanta as well. So Atlanta trip should be on our docket, don't you think?
Absolutely. We'll have some good Southern comfort food. So that's what we do in a little peach cobbler after that. If we know, and it's been well reported by local media and some national media, that Waymo has supply issues in Atlanta with outrageous wait times, not being able to be paired. Wouldn't it have been smarter? I know I'm playing Monday morning quarterback here, so send the bows and arrows, folks. Wouldn't it have been smarter to start with a smaller ODD until you get more vehicles and gradually expand that ODD?
Well, I think it would be smarter of just allocating more cars there, but I think maybe that wasn't an option. I don't know. These are engineering people that are launching this thing. I've talked about that before, that it feels like we're still in kind of science project mode, right? The car is 150, 175,000. We'll talk later about Baidu and where they are at production and cost as a result. It doesn't seem like a tremendous amount of focus on the business side of it. Maybe parts of groups within Waymo not communicating well enough together. Like if there's a product team that's assigning a certain number of cars, you read about this with large companies, especially, there's just not good enough synchronicity. That goes all the way back to the top. Kendra and Dimitri should be handling that, right? And should assign people, whether it's with Uber or in their own markets, to make sure that these things go more smoothly. But I guess in their mind, it's like they probably didn't do a lot of marketing in Atlanta. It's like a beta. We're kind of more focused on it than most people. But I think the error in that is, part of, look at Tesla. They don't advertise at all. Part of this is trying to create your own virility in terms of the product, and it has to be a happy experience. So while you may not be marketing it, if you're offering service in a market, you should consider whether it's going to leave the customer happy that they were able to get the product that you're offering in a quick time frame and have a pleasant ride. So I don't know, unforced error.
It's unforced error. You said happy. I'll give you the McDonald's term. It's not a happy meal. It's a horrible meal. If you get less than a 1 star in the Zagat guide. McDonald's gets a higher than a 1-star on the Cybercab. Let's just get into that. Because no matter who made the decision, I'm not assigning blame anybody. You're getting picked up in the media saying your service has an issue. So then if I'm Waymo or if I'm Uber, and Uber has publicly confirmed this, Andrew McDonald on X has publicly stated that they are building a robo-taxi tier. Why not accelerate that? You can see, okay, robo-taxi wait 45 minutes. Okay, fine. I'll go inside and hang out and go. Why not be more transparent around that? Why does Uber have to mash everything together and the inconsistency of the experience, just like this gentleman had to do it for cancel this. And I'm going to tell you what, when we go to Atlanta, if we have that thing, I'm going to make a whole video just about how many times we have to do it to get a Waymo.
That's going to be a very boring video. I don't think we're going to get a lot of watches, maybe some unsubscribes. So I may emphasize that we'll edit that down. It just goes back to kind of who's making what decisions in jointly launched markets between Uber and Waymo. Because there's no reason Uber wouldn't want Waymo to flood the market there. And if Uber's potentially enticing them, Waymo, to do joint markets through funding of the cars or, nice payments on the rides that are there, like, shouldn't there have been minimum requirements that Uber asked for when launching new markets? And I think it just goes back to the very first question I was trying to get to, which we constantly get. Now that we had Austin was like, everything's great with Uber. Then Dallas was like, things are not great with Uber. And then Atlanta is like, things are not great with Uber because maybe people don't care, which again, as we said last week, was a false read. What it ultimately comes down to for a lot of investors is there literally now, is there going to be another Uber Waymo market, or are we done with Uber Waymo markets? What's your answer?
I'm going to give you the political answer. I think it's 50-50 at this point. I have no inclination one way or another. We did see something interesting, which I want to point out. Somebody on X went through the latest update to the Waymo app in the source code. It's no longer called Waymo 1, it's called Waymo. Is that a sign that Waymo's looking to go on their own? I don't know. But at this point, as it relates to Uber, I'm going to say it's 50-50, and I'm leaning towards the side of Uber being left in the markets that they're in.
Okay, so two things there. I have no idea why, if you called it Waymo versus Waymo 1, that sends you any signal about whether they're going it alone or not. So I don't know. Like, Waymo 1 versus Waymo, it's not Waymo Uber. So I don't think that matters at all. And on the likelihood for a new market, I think 50-50 is just way too low. It's still important for Uber to show to its investors that they are in the game for autonomy. And while Nuro is a great new partner to hedge their bet and to get the diversity and the segmentation that they want, Waymo is an unavoidable partner that you need to be, if you're Uber, partner with. Now, look, we've highlighted like that people should start asking questions about the financial relationship, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's possible that Uber is being more thoughtful as they negotiate the terms of new markets they're getting into. On the flip side, you've talked about, the pressure that Waymo has on the regulatory front in markets like Boston and New York, where Uber clearly has expertise in how to execute in these markets. So to me, I think the probability is much higher, meaning like 90% chance that we will see another Uber Waymo market. Remember, we're not anywhere close to Waymo making its final decision on whether it goes it alone, in my opinion, at least. I have no idea, but I don't think we're at least 2 years away from whether Waymo decides whether they're going it alone or going to do something with Uber. So in the interim, you're going to see more Uber markets. So I'm going to say 95% chance you will see an additional Waymo Uber market.
One market or two markets?
Doesn't matter, just that there will be another market. That was the question. I know, it's a cop-out. It'll be more than one market, though. If you're going to push back on me, that's fine. I will still say that it's going to be more than one additional. There's a lot of markets, right? As great as Waymo is in terms of being a quote-unquote this scale player, the leader in the U.S., let's put it in perspective. There are a ton of markets that Waymo does not exist. So yeah, I think it's going to be more than one market, 95% chance with Uber.
Put on your bulletproof vest and your helmet. Emphasize a point here. Waymo does not need Uber. Uber needs Waymo. Uber has to keep the narrative going at the end of the day. And I'll give you further pushback. Why did the CEO of Avis on the earnings call come out and say they're going to potentially do more markets together? Why is the Miami market not Uber? And if this fiasco in Atlanta, sorry, Uber, it's a fiasco, continues, if I'm on the Waymo executive team, it gives me more ammo not to go forward. Unless, and you rightly stated this, so you can take your ammo off for this one. What are the financial terms of that agreement? Make that public and let us make a better, clearer decision.
Well, there's no way you're getting terms of contracts like that public. And yeah, I've long said that Waymo is, has kind of more leverage at this point, at least. That's why you need companies like Nuro and Wave and others to continue to progress and succeed to change those dynamics. Or, like I said, build up some of the fleet management stuff to get some greater leverage. But there is a definitive role that Uber does play in the interim, which is why they've already been a partner with Waymo. And again, we don't know what Waymo's final decision is as a company on whether they want to maintain a robo-taxi fleet long time. We constantly get feedback by people that are certain that they know that they will not be doing, rideshare over the long term, and insist and go back to this citation and that citation. And if that's true, then they do in fact need Uber, right? Because what are you going to do if you're not running your own rideshare? You're going to have to partner with someone, and Uber's the biggest. Obviously, they could do something with Lyft, but does that not one market at all exist with Lyft? So we'll see. And the question was one market, two markets, whatever. And when that happens, I can't wait to get back on this podcast and rub it in your face that your 50-50 was way too conservative.
And I will congratulate you if you're right. I think the one thing you and I can agree on now, we don't know what the heck is going to happen going forward with those two.
Well, that's true, but we can give our best guess. So there's another company that's out there that, I'll be honest, I had never heard of this company before. It's called Helm.ai, and they have a deal with Honda, an OEM. And I think that you've done stuff with them on the road to autonomy. Maybe you know about this company. Tell us, please, about Helm.ai. And if there's any listeners from Helm.ai, I apologize for not having heard of your company before. It's embarrassing, I admit, and I'd love to learn more about it. But why don't you tell us what you know about Helm and give us some context on this new Honda relationship.
The Honda relationship is not new. It's actually an old relationship. Honda was one of the original seed investors in Helm.ai. It's led by a gentleman named Vlad. Vlad did his PhD under Jim Simons, the famous quant trader. Probably, there was that really great book. Would you give a book plug? I'll give a book plug. The Man Who Beat the Market. You can order it on Amazon. Really good book about Jim Simons. And they're taking a deep teaching approach. If you kind of think about a deep neural network, a building approach, they started a simulation platform, moving into driving. I have not been in the Helm vehicle. I do have the opportunity to go, and I will say for the audience, Vlad, the CEO of Helm, will be on the Road to Autonomy podcast again shortly. So they're taking a deep learning approach. The system, the way that the deal is structured with Honda today is for an L2 plus to a 3 system. And in simple terms, it means eyes on, hands off. And this is going to go into, and Walt, this is real, because this is not a press release. This is real. It's going into mass production in 2027 with Honda. To me, reading all the press releases, having interviewed their CEO before, this is going to be Honda's equivalent. And Bloomberg even stated this, Honda's equivalent to Tesla's FSD. Really interesting move. I'm bullish on the founder and CEO, and I can't wait to get in this vehicle in 2027 when it's out there on the roads.
So a couple questions. Vlad, what is this? Where's this company based?
They're based in Sunnyvale, California.
But is it truly an American company, or is it like we had last week with Professor X, where it was effectively a Chinese company that has shed all of their allegedly the Chinese assets and is now reborn as a U.S. company?
It's always been a U.S. company. It was never reborn, never branded. Mostly worked in simulation below the radar. I've been following them for a while, and it's a true founded American company with no foreign ties.
And then the other thing is this hands off. I mean, what you described just sounds like ADAS, right? So do they have specific aspirations with this Honda relationship to go, level 4, which is basically not having to watch the road? Or is the does the buck stop here with basically just like, okay, great, it's going to drive my car when I'm sitting behind the wheel?
So I had the same question. I reached out to the company for comment, and at this time they said the deal is focused on the ADAS portion. But having a very good understanding of the technology and having interviewed the CEO before, at some point that will go level 4. And if you even go on the Helm.ai website, they do have a level 4 product. So at some point I could see this going, but the way that the deal structure from what the company told me, this is an ADAS play today.
So it's kind of like a Mobileye type of approach to the progression here. And I guess the real question is, that may be their goals, but do you think Honda sees them that way? Or is Honda like, okay, you're great for this product, but if we ever go to fully autonomous, we're going to have to engage with someone else?
I see, and this is based on filings, Honda has invested in several rounds and continue to invest in Helm. So if you look at Honda, let's not forget Honda was burnt on GM Cruise. I view Honda as taking a very conservative approach with Helm, and I see this, if I'm in Honda shoes, as a way to scale into L4 based on the Honda culture. I see this as the Honda culture taking that first step to get there instead of jumping all in as they did with Cruise.
Okay, well, that's great. So it's another one to put on the radar. Keep an eye out. It's also interesting, no LiDAR sensors, right? This is vision. And again, this speaks to this, what we've called autonomy 2.0, maybe 3.0, where you have these legacy companies that were built on things that are on the rails of HD maps, and this evolution to the next step where it's just trying to, true end to end in terms of how their approach to autonomy is, which is, kind of basically the Tesla approach, the Wave approach, not necessarily some of the people that use DARPA to provide their kind of legacy credibility, but DARPA comes now with a legacy, structure of perhaps a more challenging market by market rollout.
The legacy of structure of maps and having to rely on legacy maps is going the way of the dodo bird. Everything is going to a mapless, map-like future. The sooner the companies adopt to it, the sooner and quicker they're going to be able to scale.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. I don't know if that's definitively true, but certainly, it's becoming like one of those kind of diehard dividers between how people view this market. I don't come out on one side on that. We'll have to see how things progress.
We're always progressing and we're always learning things. And I learned something this week. Well, I literally fell out of my chair. I had to fact check this before we brought it to our audience. Alibaba, Jack Ma's Alibaba, they had an autonomous driving division. No surprise, they have a lot of other stuff they've invented. And it verified this, that they have a company called Baidu Network Technology. They're in the process of spinning the company out through an IPO through Hong Kong. Interesting timing, to say the least. Didn't even know they had the group, and next thing you know, they're spinning it out in Hong Kong. I know the relationship between the mainland and Hong Kong, but what do you make of this move?
The Hong Kong exchange means nothing to me because it's effectively China. In fact, you have a lot of the Chinese autonomous companies that attempted or did list in New York, and then there was some pushback on whether they should be allowed to do that. Now they're talking about moving to Hong Kong. I'm sure it's liquid there. I think Dallas had an announcement earlier this week about their connection to the NYSE. Like, I don't know if that really means anything. It's just a matter of does the market offer you an opportunity to get the capital you need? If you're a Chinese company, do you really need that type of access to capital when you have the government backing, and which helps you drive costs down? So a lot of times we'll see people tout the cost of a Chinese EV at $35,000 or $30,000 to an American design car, at least, that's much higher. I don't know if that's truly an apples to apples comparison for a variety of reasons. And then what markets are actually going to be enabled to have those cars on the road? Certainly not in the U.S. Europe might be a little bit more accepting. We'll see how the trade wars continue over time and how that plays out.
Yeah, the thing is, it's very hard to get verified data. A lot of it is opaque, and we can't get verified data. And I'm going to give you some data here from Baidu and their Apollo Go program. And I'm not saying this is verified because we have not verified this. All I will read you this data was off an X tweet on the official Baidu account. To date, Baidu has completed 14 million rides in 16 cities globally, and they have driven over 124 million miles autonomously. That's compared to Waymo's 100 million miles Well, is this marketing speak? Is this hype? What do you make of these numbers that Baidu's putting out there? Because it got the attention of Bill Gurley.
I mean, I think those numbers are great, and I'm sure Baidu has done a lot of miles, whether it's 124 or 100. I don't know if there's a material difference. The only thing that matters to me is I get in that Waymo and it works on the roads that I'm familiar with. And yeah, the difference is the price of the car, like I just said. I think apples to apples, 175 to 35 is there's probably some factors at play there, given where it's coming from, where it's getting manufactured, and where there's a drive to get market share, purchased market share. And then I would also layer on top of that is like Waymo is effectively still a science project. They're putting sensors on top of purchased cars. It's not a fully integrated production car, and the 175 is just kind of a ridiculous number to reference. That's going to be under 100,000, I think, pretty quickly when you get to production. Whether it gets to 35 or not, we'll see. I don't know if it needs to get to 75, or excuse me, to 35, in order for there to be good business models for the rideshare business, let alone private ownership. In fact, I know it doesn't need to get to 35 for those models to work. So if you need to get to 35 in China, great. And, it's getting paid for somewhere else there, though, likely. And, there's a different economic and market in China, as always.
As always, and those vehicles are being exported to Europe, and they're going to run the Uber network. And I want to experience it. Perhaps at some point we take another Autonomy Markets field trip to Europe and experience these Chinese AVs firsthand.
Absolutely. Put it on the docket. It's going to be a busy 25 and 26.
We've got lots of content coming for you, and I want to stay on the international theme here. One of the markets that I've been talking a lot for years, actually, on the road to autonomy, and you and I've highlighted quite a bit here, is the Japanese market. With the aging population, the government's willingness to embrace autonomy. This week, we got confirmation from the Japanese government that Tesla has begun testing FSD supervised with employees. That's a big step. What do you make of Tesla's expansion into the Japanese market, and could this be a precursor potentially to robotaxi in Tokyo?
I mean, I think it's great whenever we hear any incremental data point on FSD in additional markets, and we don't hear anything in terms of an incident that happened in Austin over the past week. And here we are, how many weeks in? And I'm sorry to be repetitive to our longer time listeners, but it bears pointing out that, we got a lot of negative feedback. I can't believe they're launching. This is this, that, and the other thing. The whole thing should be shut down for this. And here we are, another week has passed. So, and then we talked last week, I think, about California. Why deal with California when you have other markets? So it's good with it's Japan. I'd rather obviously see more markets in the U.S., but Tesla, to your point, is a global company, so it's great. And I think, that's 100% a positive sign. But we still want the ODM and Austin to be increased, more cars to get down there. But it's early, like September. I know that there's expectation that you're going to have more riders being able to get in there. And I think probably soon thereafter, we'll see that observer, hopefully, get pulled out of the car.
I just want to give some data here for the audience in Japan before we get back to Austin. Just for the audience knows, there's 30,000 registered Teslas in Japan. And from a regulatory standpoint, Tesla has to receive a permit from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism. And what that permit does is that permit validates that the vehicles are safe. So that's a really good public sign there. Getting back to Austin, I'm going to ask you for prediction here. So you and I experienced the Model Y. Great car. I wish it was the YL. That would have been even cooler, more room for our stuff. When do you think, in a prediction here, Walt, the Cybercabs begin taking paying passengers in Austin?
There hasn't been a lot of chatter about the Cybercab, so I have no expectation there. I have no idea where we're at with the Cybercab. I think to what you said, I'm a larger person, so I prefer the larger cars. And when I see the YXL, in this country, maybe at some point we get that Cybertruck line converted with a spacious SUV type of vehicle on top of, whatever drivetrain or whatever you would call it that exists on that manufacturing line for the Cybertruck. So I prefer to go bigger. than smaller. But I don't know, maybe in the upcoming earnings call, we'll hear more about timing on Cybercab.
We'll hear more. You and I will always continue to follow the markets each and every week and break them down for our audience every Saturday at 10 a.m. As we, the last 2 weeks of the summer here, what do we need to look for next week in the autonomy markets?
Nothing, Grayson. There's nothing on the docket. It's the last week of August before Labor Day. We got a lot of things teed up for September. Let's just hope that something happens in the markets for us to chat about. But you definitely hear us. You will see us here to next week either way.
Either way, and something tells me that we will have some news, because that's always what happens in the autonomy markets. The autonomy markets are growing, and Walt and I are here each and every week to cover it for you. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is autonomy markets. Walt, until next week.